Welcome to the Heart of House Podcast, Episode 2. Heart of House is home to the entrepreneurial spirit.
As we sit down with our gathered experiences,
we also share stories and lessons of success and failure from some of the most extraordinary and outstanding people.
With educational segments on spirituality,
relationships,
money,
and much more,
we get to the core,
the root,
the heart of the matter,
to help you improve your overall health and well-being.
From practical matters to divine wisdom, we bring it to the table.
It's food for your soul. Let's eat.
Just had to say that with the shoulders.
Yeah.
We bring it to the table.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Kalani.
What's going on? It's Jake.
And today we're talking about the idea of staying in your lane and how that translates into being the best. But before we get into the show, I'd like to introduce you to a very special guest we have with us today, who'll be sharing some of her story and how it helped her launch into the world of advocacy and fashion design. A mother of three, a native of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, this woman, along with her two daughters, founded No Punching Bag in 2015. No Punching Bag is a fashion brand committed to social change. The brand, which promotes healthy relationships with oneself and others, was inspired by a series of unfortunate experiences, including domestic violence. Since starting No Punching Bag, they have gone on to gain traction in the fashion world, locally and abroad, showcasing fashion collections at Paris Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, and North Carolina Fashion Week, to name a few. This small home-based business has begun to raise eyebrows with their creativity and bold mission. They have been featured in magazines such as the Garnett Report and Blender Book magazine for turning heads with their one-of-a-kind designs at Paris Fashion Week earlier this year. No Punching Bag has big plans for the coming year, tackling issues such as donor awareness next spring and human trafficking in the summer, as well as a few other social issues. With the determination and extraordinary vision, there is no limit to what these women can accomplish within the near future. So please help me welcome a good friend, a sister, the lovely Angel Fant. What's going on, Angel? How you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous.
Good to have you.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Cool. So tell us a little bit about Angel Fant. You are an artist, obviously a fashion designer with No Punching Bag. How did you first get started in fashion design?
Well, I'll say third grade, my aunt gave me a fashion designer kit. And I always drew and would make clothes as early as second grade. I was, taking little things that I can find and creating it. So when she gave me that, I was like, I'm going to be a fashion designer when I grow up.
All right.
I didn't really know how that dream was going to come to pass or anything like that. I just would just dream, and think about it and daydream just about it, And so I didn't know if it was going to ever happen, but it did. Organically.
Yes. All right. Well, how is it organic?
Well, I was thinking that, as an artist, when I first decided after my divorce to go to UNCSA, they don't have a fashion program. Mm-hmm. So the coursework that I took up was for film and theater. And I was in wig and makeup because I already knew how to make clothes, so I didn't go into costumes. And the process of costumes is different from fashion.
Okay.
Just because of different reasons and the as far as building your collections. So since I already knew how to make clothes, I was like, I'm gonna go into this. And it didn't even spark then to get back to fashion design. But when we decided that we wanted to do something about domestic violence, we were like, well, what are we good at? What do we love? What can we do to combine both of those together to make a difference? And that's when we decided we would have a fashion brand. Wow. So I have forgot all about that dream, actually.
Wow.
What was the cause that led to having it be about domestic violence? What was the cause that led to No Punching Bag?
Well, we came up with the name because I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And my mother was a survivor of domestic violence. Mm-hmm. And so when we came up with, we kind of was like, what name can be bold, and very direct. Now, that doesn't mean it has anything to do with the fashion per se, but it would speak for itself. And that's why we said no punching bag. Before then, I was part of like Girl Talk. That's a group that deals with domestic violence. I was actually a victim of domestic violence while I was in these programs.
Wow.
And on the board of a domestic violence organization. But I was still a victim. I didn't consider myself a victim anymore because I wasn't physically being abused. So, I thought I was way past that until I realized what it really was. And as I realized more, I realized that I was still a victim of domestic violence. And then I realized when I was being victimized and what, patterns to change. But anyway, moving forth, I began to know more about my story and to promote my story, to spread the word about domestic violence and what people really needed. So like I published a book, a conversation guide of how to talk to people about domestic violence. And so that's what led. And we kind of figured it out because we knew we wanted to be a fashion brand, but organically it had to happen. And so it started off with just coming out there and just showing support through outreach. And then it was like, oh, well, we're not really doing our fashion. But it came to pass. Like I was doing all kinds of art stuff, like canvas work. And then we were just having our logo onto like garments and things like that and selling those. But it eventually led there because how we released it to Winston-Salem was we had a fashion show to release it because we actually came up with the idea in 2014, but we didn't release it until 2016 after we were trademarked in 2015.
Oh, okay. Where was that? So you had a fashion show here in Winston?
Yes, downtown Winston-Salem.
Okay.
I think it's called the Liberty Park. It's near Milton Roads at the fountain.
Yep.
We had it out there. We opened that up for other domestic violence organizations to come there. That theme was Unity to Face the Silence. So it was about bringing people together because, a lot of nonprofits that have the same mission, they compete with each other. And we didn't want that. We wanted to face it a different way. And, more like the Tom's model where you buy a shoe, they get a shoe, or Habitat when someone's getting house ownership, but they also have the restore.
Right.
And that's the way that we looked at it. So we can do what we love, but also reach people. And so we realized that we're passionate and we have a story more than domestic violence. And that's why we do social change in general. And so like our next goal is human trafficking, but I haven't experienced human trafficking.
Right.
But I feel some kind of way about it where I've seen a lot of the people that pictures of missing girls and things like that. And it's something that I really want to, touch as far as how that looks and if that matters to us. And we haven't really decided based on designs or more details on that. So I really want to speak on that. But I will say that it's, a focus that I have as well as donor awareness. So.
Okay. Now, since you brought up the human trafficking, obviously that's becoming a big topic and issue right now. And I always like to go to a different perspective, especially in the now that we're in social media, seeing everything all the time. We have so much access to so much information all the time, and it's becoming somewhat of a I don't know, we're becoming slaves to that information, that quick access, and we are reactionary, knee-jerk responses to certain things that are posted on Facebook and Instagram, such as, you see, this young girl missing for days and another one missing, another one missing. My question is, because I've seen over the past 2 months, some of those posts come up, and I also have seen the numbers. Like the last number I saw was 75,000 missing. And before that was just before that, it was 64,000. And the question in my mind is like, where are all the families and the friends of the missing women? So what is your take on the validity of, not that it's not happening. We definitely know that human trafficking is happening. But again, with social media and how broad the expanse is, you know, things can be expanded and blow up to a bigger issue. What's your take on whether or not it's as big as it's being made out to be?
Well, I would say that I definitely know it's real. However, I feel like social media can play a part in putting fear in people. I also know with training from when I tried to be a 911 operator, trying to save the world. Yeah. And so I had training on human trafficking. And so I know that there's certain things that people should do with just assault victims and all that, because all this is really connected. Mm-hmm. And so there's certain way that we can present information. So when I see those posts, I'm not going to say that I haven't shared any. I have shared some, but it's rare that I actually share it unless I'm directly sharing it with someone. If I see it like from WXI,
right?
Okay,
right,
credible source,
right,
I'll share that.
Okay.
And sometimes they'll say they've been found, and I'm like, who is this person saying they've been found? How do I supposed to know that they've really been found?
Right.
You know, it takes you in a place, and it's actually made me a little paranoid. Because I have a daughter in college,
right,
that's on campus, and I have to say, hey, you know, don't go down any dark alleys, mm-hmm. you know, pay attention to your surroundings, you know, different things like that. So as a parent, yeah. And then I'm in the fashion industry. So some of these girls are actually being trafficked that way. They set people up and say, hey, you know, would you like to model and things like that? And I've seen it on Craigslist, opportunities to model, everything. And so it's been really crazy because I took 15 models to New York.
Right.
Well, that was a task because one of our models decided that she was going to go in somewhere and model. And like, we didn't hear from her until like 1 o'clock in the morning.
What?
And she was a minor. And her mother gave her permission, but didn't communicate it with me.
Oh.
And, you know, I have a history of being a 911 operator. So I've actually been on a call where I had to save a kid. So when someone's lost, I'm like, well, I'm going to call the cavalry. Mm-hmm. You know, you know, she got about this amount of time.
Right.
But within an hour, that's when you're getting into the wrong, in some really danger zones. If somebody's been taken within an hour, because actually, the real deal is that some are not just being like human trafficking where they're putting them into the sex trade, or some of them are being killed, which is a totally different thing.
Yeah, that gets into the donor.
That gets into that, which is a new thing, but really not a new thing.
Right. I mean, before all of us combined been here, that's been going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's just that with social media, it's a platform to make things more real because you're seeing it.
Right.
So it's always been there. Is what I feel is always been there. It's just that we didn't know because we didn't have a platform for the world to see it.
Right.
And I think that if you are looking for someone, it's the perfect place to post a picture. But I do think when you say, where are the families? Well, I would like to see the families say that this person's missing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to just randomly have some bad looking photo, or, you know, I want to see exactly how this person looks. I want to know something about the person.
Right.
You know,
right.
You know, that way you will know more and you can see real information and you can really help people. But if you're just saying, well, somebody go get pics off Facebook or off Google, they can put a little flyer together saying this person's missing. And we have people playing around on the internet to put fear in people.
Absolutely.
So, like, if someone I knew was missing, like, it would be a totally different presentation of information.
All day. All day.
So.
You, that's not...
Like bullhorning information.
Oh, it would be a lot of tears too.
Yeah, a lot of tears. Yeah. Lot of
Anger.
people ain't gathered around, a lot of voices, all of that.
Churches.
I don't see any of that. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
I always go with my gut and my intuition, and I'm like, something ain't quite matching up with the numbers and what's happening.
See.
Right.
Yeah.
Because again, we know human trafficking and all of these things have been going on for years, even centuries.
Yeah.
But again, the social media platform allows us to see everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. And see, I also have an inside connect of people that actually handle this every day,
Okay.
that send me information about these things, because I don't want to present something that I know nothing about.
Right.
So for a year now, I've been receiving information from different associations. They also have a truck driving association that is against human trafficking. So there's people out here moving and shaking about these sort of things. And I just think that the presentation of the information, I don't know where the families is. And I didn't even think about it like that until you brought it up. Like I just don't get it. Like, there should be a lot, like if it's 75,000 kids missing, this is a problem.
Right.
That should be on all the news right now.
Right.
I would
Like
cry.
1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Like 1,000.
And
100.
And that's one of the things that people are, some people are posting about and like, why is this not in the news and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I can understand all different levels why it might not be in the news.
Yeah.
More importantly, we got social media. Why am I not seeing 20,000 people at least?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, no, not even 20. If there's 75,000 missing, you got a mom and a dad and family. There should be triple that.
5 times.
Churches.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like nobody, I don't see anything.
Schools.
Maybe once in a blue moon, something on the news, somebody, which is a local thing. Yeah. But
We got all this going on and ain't nobody shaking no rugs.
no shaking no rugs. Nah. Something's off, you know?
Right.
Well, this is definitely going to be something that we're going to talk about when we're creating a collection of what should happen as far as presenting information. And, you know, because it is an issue. This is happening, which I know it is happening. I don't know how often it's happening.
Right.
But I only know what I'm told and what I see on the internet. And so since it is happening, and I do think it's a problem, like child brides.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, I have to say something. And the best way for me to say something is through what I do. I can't do it like someone else. I have to do it the way that I do it. And then that way people will pay attention, even when they're not even realizing they are.
Wow. That's powerful. And that really speaks to staying in your lane and knowing, okay, that you are unique in all that you do. And people are going to listen and be attracted to that just because you're being true to yourself. That's really good. So you talked about the human trafficking, and prior to that, you were saying something about the donor awareness. Okay. What for people that are not familiar with what that is, you know, what is the donor awareness issue?
So we're focused on kidney awareness and donor awareness. It may end up being in April. So we're kind of in between March and April. March is kidney awareness, and then April is donor awareness. And all parties are moving towards April. So donor awareness. For me, I'll tell you what that is for me, and then I'll tell you what it is for everyone else, per se. For me, my dad was in dialysis. All right. So he didn't make it long on dialysis. He passed 2 years ago. But at age 30, they said that he had the heart of an 80-year-old.
Wow.
And he passed in his 50s. So he lived for a while, but he was always on a lot of medication, and he was a football player when he was younger. He had a lot of health issues from not just football. It was alcohol and all kinds of things that he did to his body. He was hard-headed. And he loves sweets. Like, he loves, like, he liked fried chicken, all that kind of stuff. He thought that this word is what he would use. Nobody get offended by this comment, but a white woman in a black woman's body is what he called me, because I just see things different, eat different, you know. He just thinks, like, why I can't eat this? Don't tell me what to eat, that kind of thing, right? But my grandmother was in dialysis for 10 years before she passed. And, she had an operation few days before she passed. So it didn't necessarily have to do with dialysis, but she did wait for a long time for a donor. And so these things, you know, when I go to the doctor, they say, well, what's your family's history?
Mm-hmm. Right.
What my family have to do with me? This is what I'm putting in my body. And I didn't do these things. So why do I have to take all of this medicine or do this because of what my daddy did or my grandmother did or what my mother did? But I will tell you this, domestic violence and trauma, childhood trauma, has affected my health equally as alcohol or drugs would ever.
Wow.
And
how so?
Well, because the trauma caused me to have like anxiety, which is a real thing that I didn't even know I had, you know. And so with that being said, it's a lot of stress that I would, you know, experience. And I've had to take heart medicine because of it, just like my dad had to take heart medicine, you know, but mine is from stress and his is from bad decisions as far as, well, stress is a bad decision too, right?
Yeah, stress goes, so it's a very, what is the term? Ubiquitous thing, because it covers pretty much everything at the end of the day.
Yeah, it can do damage to your body, you know, and I don't know if it does as much, but it does a lot, and it can distract your mind from your vision. Like all that I'm doing now, that wouldn't be possible if I lived within that.
Wow. At
a constant rate, you know what I mean? And I think that my dad had a little temper on him, so he had a little stress too. But so he had a combination of things. And my grandmother raised 7 kids by herself, so she stressed 8. But she was like a size 0 for years before she left here. But she had a lot of weight on her when she was with Reynolds, the company, the tobacco company.
Oh, RJ Reynolds.
She retired.
Now Reynolds American now, but used to be RJ Reynolds.
Yeah, she stress ate back then, and I took on some of her characteristics, not as stress eating, but watching some of these detective movies and, you know, the hero thing. Yeah, it's just crazy, you know, the things that I remember now that we're talking about it, about my grandmother. But she felt like diabetes was a disease in a way that she really couldn't beat it, you know, because she had diabetes, even though hers didn't necessarily run high all the time. You know what I mean? So it was something that she picked up on, making bad decisions early on, but still it affected her like long term. You know, she had, you know, toes amputated and things like that. It's a lot of things that she had to go through while doing this. But let me tell you, my grandmother, even though she might have walked with a cane sometime, she wasn't afraid to shout at church. She'll throw that cane. She'll throw that cane and she'll start shouting and praising God. And my grandmother is one of the ones, I would say that my grandmothers are part of the reason I am who I am becoming and who I am today.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier the domestic violence and traumas, childhood.
Yeah.
What would you say some misconceptions about domestic violence that you run into, like when you present what you're doing? Do you hear any misconceptions about domestic violence, like, oh, it doesn't happen around here in this neighborhood, or you have any examples?
Yeah. So that's definitely something that people get confused about. They have a certain image in their heads that they think it's supposed to look like. Like one of the things that when it first happened to me, well, at least when I considered it the first time it happened to me, it was like, you let somebody do that to you? Because I'm a pretty tough girl. Like I handled things in school. Like the bullies, I handle them. Okay, we don't do bullying. Right. And so, you know, for somebody to do something to me physically, it was kind of like, wow. Like when it first happened to me when I was 17, 18 years old, and people were just like, but in my mind, it was like, okay, if I retaliate, you know, how is this going to end? And do I deserve how it's going to end? That's what I thought during that time. But over time, I just, you know, you get into that and you just allow it. It's like I began to think that I can like save someone. And so it doesn't matter what neighborhood you come from. It doesn't matter how you look. Like the most beautiful women get abused, and some women that are not so, and some evil ones, they get abused. Like people that you think that are really powerful, maybe in a good way and a bad way, they get abused. And even men. And now I would think that the one that I really, 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 that I think that people have an image, they have an image of a woman being abused.
Right.
And there are men that are abused. Like, and men are so silent about their issues. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they don't know that they're being controlled. And so they are victimized just as much as women. Now, we do live in a world where men have been more leading and in control and things like that. So I get that. And their upbringing is wrong in some ways. And unless you look at how you've been raised and look at the things that you need to change about yourself, you're not even going to realize that you could be an abuser, you know? And I think that that's what's going on with some men. Now, if they can correct their behaviors, then they're not really an abuser, because they're like, oh, okay, well, I raised my voice. I'm sorry for raising my voice. Mm-hmm. This is just the way that I was brought up and then why I did that. That's when you're doing it and you know it's wrong. You know, that's very abusive. That's considered abuse. I mean, it's still wrong if you don't know it. But at the same time, some people don't really know what love looks like. Right. And that's where that image messes up. Like, because some people actually think that they're hitting their wives, or the women are wearing the pants. Right. That's being a woman, or that's being a man, and that is love. And it's not. So, well,
it ends up being love for them, because that's what they know. Yeah, that's what they know. I mean, it's powerful because you're right. Men, we've been brought up in society that is, of course, we see the male dominated, the masculine energy being dominant in this society, which throws everything off balance. And the fact that we've been raised in an environment where we can't cry or we can't express our emotions and feelings and stuff, that just you start to bubble up all that emotion within. They say pressure busts pipes, and you hold it in, you keep holding it in, then it comes out like a fist. Yeah. It comes out as a, verbal abuse.
Throwing beer bottles.
Yeah, beer bottle, whatever the case, And I'm glad you brought up the point that it's not just women that are experiencing domestic violence in relationships, but it's also men. And there's a fine line there, because it kind of seems like from the male perspective, we're not going to say anything because
it ain't right.
It ain't right. And then you're going to be looked at as a punk.
Yeah. You let your girl be on you.
You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, so dang, and then you come out and say it. If it's not you a punk, then you not right. That's wrong. It don't happen to you.
And I guess one of the things, I have two things I want to say, but one of the things that, what considers this person being a punk? Because they didn't hit back?
Right.
Or because they just didn't leave? Because leaving is the choice.
Right.
Not, hit me and I'm going to hit your back, like that type of thing.
Right.
And then kids are victims. Older adults are victims. And it's not really always it's not always, sometimes there's a mental health issue there. And then sometimes there's toxic, like drugs and alcohol, certain drugs mixed together. It's not always drugs involved. Some people think, okay, like for me, this person was using drugs and alcohol and the drug issue, I didn't know anything about. There were signs there. People tried to tell me, and I just was like, yeah, right. I don't know what you're talking about. And I thought that if this person is around me all the time, most of the time, that if I didn't see them doing that, and if I can keep them from drinking and, show them a different way, then maybe they would change. And as you know, I didn't want to be let me say it this way. I didn't want to be another single Black woman with kids. And that's one of the reasons why I mostly fought about that, because I had this fight in me that, I didn't want my kids to grow up without their dad. And they haven't. And I still left. And that's the biggest thing. Like, women think that they're a hospital, kind of like the church is.
Right.
Supposed to be, or whatever. I don't know. That's another topic. But, you don't have a job of fixing somebody up, whether you're a man or a woman.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You don't really have that. And one of the things I would like for people to know is that in the state of North Carolina, there's been more men die from domestic violence.
Whoa.
And also, a lot of elderly abuse has happened. A lot of kids, especially calls that the police department get, where kids are abusing their parents. And you don't really hear about this sort of stuff. Like, and some people say, well, it's because people don't whoop their kids no more and all that stuff.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say, you saw that look on my face.
I'm just going to say, and some of y'all might have different opinions, but I just think that the whole spanking thing and the whole controlling people through pain is not a solution for love. It's not a solution of communication, of right and wrong. And that when, as a child, I had to pull down my clothes and get spanked with switches and wires or whatever, that was just as much abuse as the abuse that I experienced. As a married person, it was no different because, first of all, I think that that's a little bit going to slavery times. And you talk about people having mental health issues.
Yep.
You think that doesn't degrade somebody?
Absolutely.
You can be 17 years old and you got to pull down your pants for your dad or your uncle to spank you?
Ooh,
for
Lord.
What?
Church.
And so I think that we've done something to each other by thinking that way. It's always this way of punishment and not communication about the act. Now, I'm not going to tell you that some of these kids make you want to feel like you want to knock the head off. Right. But you know what? After you finish whooping them, do you think that that's going to make them change their behaviors?
Not at all.
I don't think it does that much.
I think it's 50. I think it's like 50-50.
I get it.
For some people or children, that extent of discipline may work. Right. May work to the degree where it just, before I do this again, let me think about this. Before I go out here and steal this car, I go in my aunt's purse and take this money, I need to think about the consequence of my actions. And then I do believe that people do abuse how they discipline their children. They're not even mad at the child. They're mad at work. Right. They mad at their boss. They come home and take it out on their wife or their child or whatever. So, I think it's like 50-50 with the use of punishment by physical means.
Yeah. I agree with that, just because whatever you believe is going to be the truth. Yeah. And so here's the thing that we always say, I got whooped and look at me, I'm fine. Are you? That's the big question. But are you? Right. Yeah. Because a lot of times we're moving throughout our day with, the mental health matters. Mental health issues and emotional issues that are unrecognized. Yeah. And not saying it's directly from getting beat, but you made a clear and very valid point with, okay, somebody you got to pull your pants down and get whooped. That's slave. Yeah. Yeah. That's the teaching. So not only are we taught that, then we get reinforced when our parents beat us, and then the question with the people like, how do you discipline your child and do all these things? It goes back to communication, and that's the one thing that was definitely missing. I can speak for myself, on a different level of communication, like being really true, authentic, because we're afraid to express ourselves, or don't know. But ain't nothing wrong with not knowing. Yeah, dang that. Whew.
I certainly didn't like to be whooped or punched, so I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
Like, you can whoop me and I learned my lesson,
Right.
but I don't appreciate the nudity.
No.
Leave my clothes on.
Right.
Yeah.
They had to go,
Pop my hand.
go yeah, pop my head.
Pinching me, I mean, it's different. It don't take much for me.
Yeah.
Tell me I can't talk.
Right.
Let me tell you, they used to put me.
That's putting you down for the count right there.
Yeah, that was crying.
Yes. They would tell me at school, Angel, we're gonna put you in ISS since you don't know how to be quiet in class.
Oh,
I said,
man.
no, you're not gonna put me in there. You can send me home. So they would suspend me from school because I would not want to stay in there and not talk for hours, the whole day, not talk. That's torture.
Yeah.
And so eventually I learned my lesson
That's
early
funny.
on because it doesn't, I looked at it as a long haul. Like, what does this look like if I want to do something real serious in this world? I didn't know if it was possible, but what does that look like, me being suspended from school,
Mm-hmm.
And one of the principals said, you're like a time bomb going off, because I had all this anger for, my childhood, like inside when I was going through school, like especially elementary. And it was just like, I was this real good person, but I was very hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And, and we were, we traveled a lot as far as housing when I was younger. And I didn't really see my childhood as a bad childhood. I mean, I have a lot of good memories, and I have some good family members. Then I have some family members that really, we were the black sheeps, of the family, and they treated us different. And some of them still do. So I have good things that made me who I am today. And then I have some bad things that made me who I am and who I'm becoming, and I take that as good. Learn my lesson. First of all, how not to treat people, how not to treat my kids. And when I am being stereotype-ish on people, check myself.
Right.
Check how I'm talking to people.
Right.
Because, especially when you get being fashion, you want to be really nice to people, and you have to know that there's a balance in leadership in what to demand, and, know that this is your name and this is what you're representing. And these people can't represent this good thing that we're trying to do, then they can't be a part. And I have to find an effective way to communicate with them and say, you know what, this is in for you. And usually I don't, because of my childhood, I don't like confrontation. And so I'll avoid cutting someone off to keep from it being like, the stereotype, like black woman, angry black woman, just by me having a tone, you're offended.
Right. Right.
Just like me saying you're wrong, you're offended. First of all, because I'm black. And second of all, because I don't supposed to talk to anybody like that, especially if you're another race. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
And she has a Habitat house.
Right.
And she lives in Boston Thurman. How dare her tell me that I'm wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to check myself and also be okay with how they feel at the end of the day.
Speak to that because that's super important. Being okay with how they feel. How do you navigate that in terms of your feelings and what do you do with your feelings? So say you got something coming up within you. How do you manage that when you're in a situation like that?
Well, and while I'm in the situation, I don't really be thinking about how they feel.
Yeah.
But after I've left the situation, I have to do mindful moments. Like I have to, say, okay, you know what? You're not gonna let this distract you for what you have to do next. Because the distraction will take you totally off what you're supposed to be doing. Your goals, even eating, even just peace of mind in general. You can't take things with you. And if you know that you did the right thing, then that's what you have to stand on and be okay. Now, if you didn't, you have to go and correct that. And I don't like to sleep on anything. Like, I don't want no baskets in place when it's time for me to leave in here. Like, I didn't handle my business and leave people the way that they wanted to be treated. So, like, if I feel like I did something wrong, I have to go and apologize. So, that's just the way it is. And listen, I'm not one for apology. Like coming up when I was a kid, the only way I can beat the people that beat me, like physically, is not to apologize. Like I was like, I'm not apologizing. I remember one specific time where I didn't apologize to my dad, even though I was right. He wanted an apology from me. And so he started off with a flip-flop. Then he moved up to a switch. It went all the way to a branch. And I wouldn't cry because I wanted him to know that he was wrong.
Wow.
And my grandmother said, look at me, ninja. She didn't say that word.
Right.
She said, you better cry.
What?
And it was this thing with him where he was, I love my dad, but he was a womanizer. You know, he just had this way that he was always right. And that is not even just with women. That's with anyone. He's always right. But for him, a child is supposed to listen to the parent. That's the way they're raised. People have been raised to think that if you're an adult, you're right. If you're the parent, you're right. No matter how old your kids are, you're not going to take responsibility, you know, because you're right. And the parent's always right. And you have to listen and you have to obey. And I ain't never been that one. So like if I see that there's an issue with me, I'm going to try to change it. And if I don't see it, then it may take me about a week or so to try to figure out what in the world I do wrong. But I'm not that stubborn, but I am stubborn in a way that I'm willing to stand up for what's right.
So would you say that that's being stubborn then? If it's something that you know in your knower that is right, is that really being stubborn? And I ask that question because I'm very, very conscious of the words. And that's one thing we'll do here is start to break down the words and be mindful. Just as you are being in that moment, you're taking control of your life, which is very powerful in itself just because of what you've gone through. But does that really resonate when you say being stubborn, or is that just resilience? The title? Yeah, that sounds more like you, or I don't know, because stubborn seems like that's something that we've learned to say. You know what I mean? When somebody is up against us saying something, and then we know, and then we won't back down. We're quick to say, oh, I'm stubborn, and we'll label ourselves as being stubborn. Do you really feel that you're stubborn?
I think that I can be. I will say that my father passed 2 years ago. And for me, when he passed, I wasn't speaking to him. Had not been speaking to him for at least a few months. And it was because of how he communicates. And my kids actually seen him mush me in the face. And it was like, what is this even for? You know? And my kids are more quiet. He doesn't really like that. He wants them to not be sitting near me and all that kind of stuff. And he wants them to speak only when spoken to, that kind of thing. You know, like, I love you, but when you come in here, you're supposed to say hello to everybody. And that day, my sister had spoke to my kids before they could speak to him. So he thought that they wasn't speaking. They had no reason not to speak to their grandpa. They love him.
Right.
And so he kept on going on about it. And I said, you know what? Is it that serious? Do we really even have to go there today? And he got aggravated. And I was like, okay, so what? I did like this. Oh, he did not like that. He came for me.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm done. I'm leaving. He was like, leave. I mean, he literally came after me.
Just because you held your hands up?
Yeah. And so I walked out the door. He was coming out there, and my son stepped in front of him to stop him. And he didn't do anything. He just stood there. Mm-hmm. And we left. And from that day on, I didn't talk to him. And he passed. Wow. And for me, like, did it have to be that serious?
Right.
Like, I would have liked to talk to my dad again. Now, oh yeah, wait a minute. He did call me. And he called me about banana pudding to ease the moment. And I said to him, you're not getting any because you don't supposed to have any. And I was really the only daughter that'll say, you're not getting any chitlins, you're not getting this because you're not going to get it from me because I'm not going to be a part of this.
Right. But
he couldn't stand that, like, that I'm going to be the one to say, you know, but at the same time, I would have wanted to talk to my dad again, and I didn't have that opportunity. So when I say that was kind of stubborn, like my kids like, no, mama, you did the right thing. No. But was it that moment that serious not to talk to my dad for months?
Yeah.
Was it that serious that, I mean, I know he mushed me in my face and I was taking a stand. But after that, I should have said, you know what? Because sometimes I would put down the phone when he's talking to me. Yeah. And I'd be like, are you finished yet? Or I'll hang up and I'll call him back in 5 minutes and say, are you done?
Wow.
You ready to talk to me now?
That's rough.
And so I would, standing here today, I definitely would want to have a conversation, like not hold on to something in a way that at that moment, not that, I mean, I guess it's not closure in a way, but when my dad passed because of that, I didn't accept that he had passed. Like, I didn't even acknowledge it. Like, as far as I'm concerned, he's at his house still, and I'm still mad at him.
Wow.
I did that it's been 2 years, but I've done that for most of the time. Like, he's over there. I'm just not talking to him right now.
How's that
that's not good.
Yeah. How's that affecting you now? Like, is that still an area where you don't have that closure that you wrestle with? Well,
I've accepted that he's not here. And I've talked to his wife and whatnot, and we actually talked on the phone the other day. We don't talk often. And I don't think that it's a matter of that I don't have closure. It's just a matter of death is more real to me than ever. Because like I've known people to pass, and when I was straight out of high school, I was a CNA. So it's like, death is real. But when your parent dies, that's something totally different. It's more real to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm more trying to accept that than actually the fact that he passed. Okay. And I did see him, after he had passed at the hospital. I didn't want to go see him, but my daughter did. So I went with my daughter's support. And so I kind of wanted to keep those things in my mind, not that moment in my mind.
Right.
And so I think that it's hard for me to deal with. But as far as how my dad was, I got that closure at the funeral when my uncle stood up there and said, now y'all know how he was. I always want to be right. And he just talked about how my dad was so stubborn in a way that he always had to be the right one and he always had to have the last word. And it was like, okay, it's not just me. So, in a way that gave me closure as far as our last argument. Now, as far as, I don't know if you get over your parents passing. I think that is something that you learn to deal with. It's something that you digest in a way and you process it. Mm-hmm. So it's not something I think about on a daily basis. But like November the 30th was like he passed on November the 30th and that just happened. And that day, my sisters then were a different way than I was on that day. Right. It was like, okay, I mean, at the funeral, I really didn't even cry. And it was the craziest thing because I'm not a crier, but it was my dad's funeral and I wasn't falling over backwards because he had passed. Right. I knew that he was struggling and I knew that he was in a bad place health-wise and he had put up a good fight. Right. He really did as far as sneaking and eating certain things. But he, he did what the doctor told him to do. Yeah. He tried that way. Right. I mean, I wanted him to try other methods, but I accept that, there's an expiration date on this side. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know how to answer that really, but,
no, you answered it. Yeah. It's funny because, our story is similar as far as our fathers and how I didn't really have much of a, response in that way. But I did like way before it happened, which was really weird. But he was the same way. He was struggling, on the end, and it almost felt like a relief that, I didn't have to witness him, in that struggle, fight, and all of that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Do you feel that those experiences, or how would you say those experiences contribute to your success?
Well, I think that as far as where I'm heading and where I'm at now, I look at different issues and I try to see others' opinions, and, you know, other views, and realize that everybody's view is just as important as mine. And I would say that with my dad, it was like, okay, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and you're wrong. And it's just, and we were both like that. Yeah. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Right. You know, and for me now, it's kind of like, you know what? I understand what you're saying. I see why you would say that, you know, and it's more of an openness to listen, because I don't want to leave a conversation and be like, you know what? I had the last word on that conversation, you know, you know, and I haven't been the type to have the last word, but at the same time, I like a lot of words. I like a lot of words. So, well, I definitely didn't have the last word with him. That was rough. But I will tell you this, my dad's birthday was in June. And before he passed that day, I was like, my cousin talked to my mom. He was like, "You gonna come and you know, your dad throws this event every year to sing, you know." And I was like, "No, I ain't going. I'm not dealing with him." And so he was like, "Angel, we're family." I said, "Family's who you want to be your family, who you call your family." You know, I'm a different person, so I'm like, "You're not gonna get me on that one." And he was like, "Listen, you need to go. It may be your last time singing with your dad." And I was like, "You're right. I think it is my last time." And so I went and I sung with my dad, and it was great. It was a very good feeling. Yeah. My dad loved to sing and loved to play the guitars and stuff. And, wow, you know, and he likes to hear his daughter sing. So I said, you know, I was like, okay, I'm going to sing with my dad. And this was not something that was rehearsed or anything like that, but we all can sing. So we went on. I called my sisters and them up there, and we went on and sung with my dad.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. So, with that being said, sounds like somebody getting ready to sing up on this piece.
No. Not happening.
How does that make you feel? You like, nah. It's like that feeling. You'll sing like hell in the shower or at the house.
I will.
But
don't ask me.
Yeah.
I will.
Time to happen in front of somebody.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Not planned.
What did y'all sing? What were y'all singing? Choir? Church?
Well, the family does have, like, my grandparents, they met as gospel singers. And they traveled, the one that was adopted. So she did that. And so the family always sung. So they have a family choir, and I'm not on the family choir. So they would do some singing. Then other family members that could sing that don't really do this for a living, they would get up and sing. And so it's like, I think more form of testimonial. You know how they testify? And get up and talk about how good the Lord has been. And they get up. And my dad, he liked to hit notes. And you know that old school music.
Oh, yeah.
Doo-doo-doo, you know, like that kind of old school. And so it's a song that my dad always sing. And he sung at my wedding when he was not asked to. And I'm not going to sing it because it's going to make me cry. So, it's a song that my dad always sings. And he said, I made it. And he talks about, I was down to my last dime, but I made it. And he, you know, he just sings that song, and he makes all these ugly faces. You know, people that love to sing and can sing real good, they make ugly faces.
Oh, yeah. Ugly faces. Not ugly.
Yeah, that's so ugly.
Yeah.
Yo. I don't know what letter that is.
Yeah. And he would, and that's all you would hear is actually a video I have on Facebook of him just making up a song on the spur of the moment about his dirty socks.
Oh, man.
Getting up his dirty socks. And that was a few days before I stopped speaking to him. And I had recorded it. And so sometimes when it comes up on Facebook, I'll play it. And he's just telling his wife that he gonna get up these dirty socks. And he's singing about it. And it's really cool because he's only doing this because he likes to make people laugh. See, he loves to sing and make people laugh.
Yeah.
But he has a temper. But he has a great balance because if laughter, I think, and singing helped him stay here so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. because he loves to entertain the family. He would throw cookouts twice a year, go real big, you know, and it's usually around his birthday, and all the birthdays, the brothers' birthdays are kind of together in June and July. So it's cool because my kids are the same way. Their birthdays around the same time as his. So it's just more and more birthdays to celebrate. Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, had no idea, you know. So it's apparent that your parents, or there's like art in the family.
Yeah.
You know, so and you said you were in the 3rd grade. Was that right? When you realized you wanted to do fashion?
Yeah.
Oh man, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue now.
Yeah,
when you
Wow. But yeah.
Dang. Well, nah, that's not quite that accurate. I kind of know now.
Yeah.
You notice I said kinda.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I mean, I'm with that in mind. Is this it for you? Like, is this something that you'll do the rest of your life? Or what other aspirations, like, other than fashion?
Well, I love art, so I would like to go and do art all over the world, like different places with kids. And it's a dream project. It's online, a dream project. So I'm going through the UNCSA Catalyst program for arts relations. Yeah, University School of the Arts.
Okay.
Catalyst program for creative art leaders. And basically it teaches you different leadership skills and just innovative ways to present information to people about your ideas. It just teaches you how to lead with your story. It does a lot. And so one of them, my dream project on there is actually an arts fashion week. Instead of just fashion week, because you have a lot of designers right now that are creating these collections, but they're not presenting the information in the right way. Like, to have a garment that's solid white and looks like, you know, straight jackets for mental health. Right. Which I don't think that was their goal, but they did it. People were offended because you have these big white suits and these chains around people's necks like slaves. And so there was a lot of backlash about that. And so it's a certain way, you know, the way a person is trained to present is totally different than the way a person would do organically as far as that goes. Right, and sometimes training gets in the way of the actual creative process. Mm-hmm. And I have both. So, but I had, you know, the way that, you know, I would say I was born with my art. Right. And it really wasn't taught it. But when I became adult, I went to school. Well, not when I became an adult, when later on in those years of being an adult, right. I went to school, and it taught me how to present information in a balance. And then after that, I taught myself how to present what my words say, which is a lot of words, and, you know, for social change and art. So combining both. So theater and film, that's what really happens for film and theater. Mm-hmm. You know, they're presenting a story. It starts with a story. It starts with words and paper. And so I think that overall, with that dream project, I can teach other designers how to present what they want to say. Okay. But outside of that, this girl loves to make things. You know, I have so many things that I want to do. Oh, yeah. Like, I want to have an all-purple store with just purple stuff. Purple stuff. So I guess we don't need to ask the question, what's your favorite color? Okay, so the favorite color is purple. Looking at this nice purple afro over here. That was a risk. That was a risk. But you know that my hair is pretty much gray. So I had to bleach it because the purple won't take without it. Okay. So I had to make a decision to bleach it in order for it to be purple. And then I'm like, no, you know what? I'm meant to have gray hair. I probably shouldn't do this. So now I'm going to let it just wash out and just grow back out. Like, this is not an issue anymore for me. I don't need purple hair. Okay. I'm just going to wear the gray hair and just accept it because this is weird on some days. It's really weird. Even for you. I have to watch what colors I'm wearing, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can.
Okay.
The conversation piece. And like, oh, I love your hair. People say it. And then some people are like,
with that side eye.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be with anything.
Yeah. And again, you're an artist.
Yeah.
That's what artists get.
Yeah.
Regardless. But you're expressing, as long as you express yourself authentically, then you transcend all of that. You know, it's like the one in school that was getting picked on for being weird. I mean, I wasn't really getting picked on, but they did say I was weird.
Yeah.
Maybe actually not in school, but as an adult, more so. But yeah, it's your expression.
Yeah.
You know.
well, people think things are weird that they don't understand.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So
Let's define. Well, we don't even have to redefine, because weird, weird, if you look it up, I don't know if it's in the dictionary, but I know the etymology of it, you will see supernatural. I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah.
I like it.
Supernatural. Yeah. So yeah, we're supernatural. I would pull it up right here, but I got so much stuff up on this computer. I don't know if it'll. But yeah, so with your with No Punching Bag, and what are some of the challenges in the business as far as you sticking to staying in your lane and managing all kind of stuff? What is your role at No Punching Bag?
So I'm the creative director.
Okay.
So we equally own the business legally together.
Okay. You
and my two daughters,
Danielle and Tanaja.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right.
Yeah. And they're bosses for sure.
Okay.
They don't let me get away with nothing.
All right.
So if I think I'm gonna step out of my lane, I'm gonna get checked.
See, so you got a support system to keep you in your lane.
Yes,
That's
I do.
good stuff.
And they will try to threaten to fire me, and I'm like, you can't fire me.
What?
Get that? You can't fire me. So they try to make sure that I stay focused. Like I'm like when it comes down to being an artist, like I don't put myself up in a certain place higher than other people or anything like that. It's just that I am genuinely a true artist. Mm-hmm. Like maybe in the ways of, people think that may need some help mentally because I'm constantly getting ideas. Like someone, like my mom would tell me, you don't need to tell anybody your idea because they'll steal it. Guess what? I don't run out of them.
Right.
It's just going to keep on coming. Right. It's just going to keep on coming.
And I write back to you.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, you know what? I'm having all this going on. And it's like, okay, well, first of all, if I don't use it and I don't tell anybody at all, like I can't get the help I need to do it, and it, you can't get the exposure, you can't get the profit, you can't, so many things that I was afraid of is the reason why I didn't come forth with it before. Mm-hmm. And now it's kind of like, I'm not afraid anymore. And I'm just going places. And it's really cool. Yeah, and I'm like, how am I gonna get there? And it's awesome. Been happening. So, for me, I tell my daughters the same thing. They have ideas and they're very creative. Now we are all three different species when it comes to art though.
Wow.
Like I'm realistic when I draw. And my daughter, she draws some cartoon stuff, some animated stuff. And I'm like, well, you do it better than me. I'm like, no, this is your style.
Right.
But she'll say, now this one will not let me paint on her garments. I'm painting on my own garments. Yeah. And then the other one's like, Mama, you do it better than me. You should paint on my garments. I'm like, no. And she's a good artist too. Right. And so it's kind of like me telling them whatever flows. See, the Danielle, she's about perfection. It's supposed to be lined up a certain way, the measurements and everything. Metrical. Yeah. And then me and Tanaja, we're like all organic about it. Right. Guess what just happened? How did this happen? You got those. I don't know. I think that art goes further when it's organic. If we get really caught up in the lines and, like coloring books, you're drawing in the lines. Yeah. And it's like, this is your limit here. This is a limit there. And I don't like the limit. No. But I have to be controlled. I have to be controlled in a way that, so what they let me do is like, I'll be like, you know what? We're going to focus on human trafficking. But it's not like I'm going to make a decision about how we do it. We do that together. So if we have 15 garments, each one of us get 5. Yeah. We make it, we design it on paper, and then we create it. And so, I mean, for me, I started sewing at a very young age. And the girls, they started sewing around the same time because I taught them, but not in thinking that I was going to open up a fashion business.
Right.
I just taught them because I like to teach them the art that I know. And so like Tanaja knows how to make wigs strand by strand because I learned to make that at the School of the Arts. So she was interested. She loves hair. And so she would watch me and I would let her help me. And Danielle doesn't know how to do that stuff, but she knows how. She the one started sewing sooner than Tanaja. So she has learned even more because she's such a perfectionist. She's learned so much and she's bypassed me, my skill set in sewing. And Tanaja has bypassed me because I like things organic. Y'all doing things like the traditional way. I want to do it this way. You know, I want to create a dress out of paper. Yeah. Like I was thinking this morning, I said, I'm thinking that I'm going to make some garments out of metal for our presentation or something like that. And, you know, then I think about, oh, well, that would be a little heavy. Well, maybe it'll have to be really thin. Or then I just start going and they'll say, wait a minute. Stick to the idea that you just had. We'll come back to that later. You know, so they have to do me like that. They have to, yeah.
That's good to have some accountability in there, you know.
I feel so bad, y'all. It feel like they put me in a box sometimes. I'm like, I want to break free, you know, and it eventually happens. I find another way to be creative in that process. They can't really hold me in the box.
Right.
But I can respect that this is what we're trying to present. This is the story we're trying to tell. Yeah. And they'll say, well, Mama, every time you tell it, you start telling more stuff. And, you know, like for the gun violence collection for New York Fashion Week, it's supposed to be based on everyday people that experience gun violence. Right. And so we had a garment that represented the industrial industry, medical field, education field, you know, government. You know, we had all of that to represent that. And sometimes I'll say a student, it'll represent a teacher. And they're like, we have education. And you're pulling out different things here. Right. And then they'll say, okay, this is like Danielle. One garment Danielle did was for nurse. Then we had one that represents celebrities. So we wanted to really show people that, you know, we're all in this. We all have a responsibility, you know, in a way, like you have voting and then you have just paying attention to certain things. And okay, if you do have a gun and you have kids in the house, you know, you need some safety. The little strap things they have, I don't know what they call it, like plastic. They're like, you put them on your gun to keep it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't have a gun, so.
Yeah, I don't have one either, but I don't usually tell people that. But
I have one, but I don't know about the plastic piece you're talking about.
Yeah, well, you can get them from the police department. Yeah, and it's like if you have a kid in the house, because like my son is curious about guns, and that's why I don't have one. And however, we got other methods. Yeah, we got other methods.
Just so we clear.
Just so we clear.
Don't come to this house.
Don't come to this house. Nah. We're going to be like zombies and goblins. We're going to eat. We're going to eat.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So,
good luck, man. Yeah, good luck getting through that threshold.
Right.
Yeah.
Shoot.
They probably see all the stuff on the walls and be like, you know what? She's a good person. I should leave. Yeah, right.
No, they probably go in that one and be like, I think we got the we got the wrong place here.
I don't want nothing up in here. It's all purple.
It's all purple.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that the kids, they really balance me. And not just in the art form, but like as a person in general. Yeah. They offer something different because of their personalities. And that just takes someone to look at the good side, you know. Tanada's like a real soldier. And Danielle, you know, Tanada, she's a soldier. And Danielle's more the emotional. Like she is very in touch. Like Tanada's very in touch with her soul. But, and Danielle is too, but it's something about Danielle that is so kind. Mm-hmm. See, you step out of line with Tanaja.
And she gonna eat you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's real quiet. Oh. So some people think that she's not paying attention, especially in the business. She's the one that handles all the communication with no punching bag. Everywhere we've been, a lot of those opportunities were created by Tanaja.
Oh, that's
interesting. Yeah.
Now, Danielle has created opportunities, but Danielle has another way of doing it. She's the head designer. But Danielle, is kind of like, Mom, are you okay? And, because it's kind of uncomfortable sometimes when I talk about my story.
Yeah.
And so I'm the person that says, you know what? From the beginning, I said to all of my kids, are y'all okay with this?
That's good. That's really good to even get their perspective on it. Because most people, like we were talking about earlier, it's not, the child's place to be talking about, or that's.
You ain't got a choice. You doing this.
Right. Yeah. Right. Like, cause I'm the adult, then I rule the roost and you can't say nothing. So that's really good that you check in with them.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And as always, be well, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a beautiful day. Did you love this episode? Give us a like. Head on over to theheartofhouse.com where you can connect with us. We'd love to hear from you. And if not, let us know what didn't work for you. We value your feedback so that we can deliver to you better and better content to help you improve your overall health and well-being. You can also follow us on Facebook as well as Instagram at The Heart of House. Thank you so much for making the time to listen to the Heart of House podcast. Join us next week for another episode. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.